metaphor for the last 2 years. A lot of Sturm and Drang, a lot of ups and downs, but at the end, a great result that really helped the American people. That is true of the Omnibus, which I'll say something about now. A lot of hard work, a lot of compromise, but we funded the government with an aggressive investment in American families, American workers, American national defense. It's one of the most significant appropriations packages we've done in a really long time. It really helped women. I was really proud of those aspects, both in the Omnibus, and then the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act was added to the bill. The Merkley Amendment dealing with feeding was added to the bill. And this bill is really, but things in the bill, to have a year of postpartum maternal care is an amazing thing as well. Child care, an increase in 30%. There is so many good things in the bill, it's hard to get them all out. As you know, the Electoral College was in. And we funded lots of our promises, such as the CHIPS bill and the bill to help the veterans who were hurt, the PACT Act, who were hurt by the burn pits. Summer lunches for kids now every summer. Increase in Pell Grants. So we've concluded this Congress, one of the most productive in decades, with one of the best omnibus packages in decades. And here's one of the things that amazes me. The amendment process made it better. Usually when you have a big omnibus, the amendment process makes it worse because the minority is trying to undo a lot of the things in the bill. But here we stood firm and got it done. And, you know, again, as I said, it was a great 2 years. One of the most productive Congresses that we've had in a very long time. I am so proud of my colleagues, every single one of them. To do this in a Senate that had 65 would have been momentous. To do it in a Senate with 50 was, and I say this about my colleagues, their unity was miraculous. And, wow. So I feel very, very good about all of this, all of these things. We could go on and on about all the things that we did, all the things in the omnibus, and look at it carefully because there was so much in it that not everything got out at the very, very beginning. So with that, maybe, yeah, I'm not leaving anything out of importance. Yeah, I don't know what she said. She's giving me finger signs. Ah, yes, of course. That was she was doing. 9/11. That's what she said. I'm so proud of that. I want to thank Senator Gillibrand, who's been a great partner and leader on those issues. We did both. There were two aspects of 9/11 hanging out there. So in the compensation fund, some of the families members who had been left out, and it was a very good compromise that we added in victims of terrorism from other terrorist attacks on Americans around the globe. And then, of course, extending the bill, the 9/11 health benefits by a year. And now it's 5 years. It's at least 5 years that the benefits will be intact. So people who are first responders, our police, our fire, our construction workers, don't have to worry that, God forbid, when they or one of their friends who rush to the towers starts getting a cancer, that the money won't be there to help them. And I've heard of that so many different instances. So we're proud of that as well. Okay, let me open it up to questions first on the bill, the omnibus. I think, by the way, I've been leader 6 years, and I think we've had 5 or 6 omnibuses. We have rarely had a CR, and I'm really proud of that as well. Okay? Go ahead, Manu.
So you're heading into a new political dynamic next year with Republicans taking the House. First, what discussions have you had with Kevin McCarthy ahead of next year, and what is your level of concern in dealing with an issue like raising the debt ceiling?
Okay, well, let me answer that. First, I have not yet, I've seen Kevin McCarthy just as recently as yesterday with Prime Minister Zelensky, but I haven't had I'm going to wait till after his election to sit down and talk to him. I have sat down with Hakeem Jeffries, and we've started talking about how to work together. But let me say this is my hope and prediction, that there is, not all the Republicans are MAGA. And the MAGA are the loudest, and they try to push the party further to the right. But there's a large chunk of Republicans, perhaps a majority, in the House and the Senate who are not MAGA. And this election showed them, I've heard them, I've talked to them, that following MAGA is like Thelma and Louise, going over a cliff. And that's what we saw in the election. And I intend to reach out, both in the Senate and even in the House, to some of the more mainstream Republicans and say, let's work together. There are a whole lot of issues we can work together on. I'm not going to, you'll ask me which ones, I'm not going to delineate. But I believe the next 2 years, we have a huge 2 years to follow. I think it's going to be a lot more productive than people think, and not just on appointments and judges and things that we in the Senate can do on our own. As to the debt ceiling, it's got to be done in a bipartisan way. It always is. A party that tries to hold up the government and demand something in return is going to lose. Yes.
You just now mentioned mainstream Republicans versus MAGA Republicans. This Omnibus Bill includes $45 billion for Ukraine. Obviously, at least get through the next few months. But next year, if you anticipate needing to appropriate more Ukraine aid, do you worry about the composition of the House?
Well, I'm just befuddled by some of these right-wing Republicans who don't want to help Ukraine. It's always been the harder right you were, the more anti-Soviet you were, the more anti-Russian you were, and all of a sudden they're pro. And I hope it's not a residue of Trump. Trump had a relationship with Putin that was poisonous for American security. And if these folks are following him, they're making a huge mistake. But that is not the majority of the Republicans. As you saw, we had a record amount of money for Ukraine. And I don't even know what the final numbers are in the bill. What were they? What?
45 billion?
No. What were the number of votes? 68. So you got a large number of, so it must be 18. No, it's 18 Republicans voting for the bill. Maybe a few more who weren't here who might have voted for it as well. We have to stick by Ukraine. And I was watching carefully the body language of Kevin McCarthy when we were in that little room. And I think he's uncomfortable I hope he's uncomfortable being anti-Ukraine. Yes?
You've seen 97 judges confirmed so far under President Biden. Are you going to get some more today before you leave?
No, I think we'll have to start doing that when we come back. 97 is a record compared to the Obama and Trump and Bush administrations before. Trump and Bush. In the Clinton days, a lot of the district court judges went by voice, so it's not a comparison. So it's really record-setting, not only in the number, but in the composition, women, people of color, and I'm particularly proud of the professional diversity. For the first time, we have a bunch of public defenders, immigration lawyers, consumer people. So it's not just the corporate perspective or the prosecutorial perspective that's on the bench. Yes?
Title 42 nearly still. This caused you a lot of heartburn last night. What exactly happened? Is any part of that fight, I mean, with the number of Democrats who wanted to vote for the Michael Amendment, is any part of that going to carry into next year?
Well, I think the Biden administration realizes it has to come up with a real plan for the border that's not just punitive or health-oriented. Title 42 has no consequences. So you cross the border, you push back on the other side, and the same people cross over and over again. It's not a comprehensive plan that's ever going to work. And so the Biden administration's coming up with one, and I think you're going to find that Democrats are going to be the party that's constructive about dealing with the border instead of using it for political purposes, which they did in this election, and it didn't work. They did in the 2018 election, too. Remember, we saw the hordes. The anti-immigration sentiment that is in the right wing of the Republican Party is not where the American people are. It appeals to maybe the third of the electorate that's furthest to the right, but I've never seen it work politically. Yes?
Senator, after the 2010 midterm election, the Democrats lost the House. There was no omnibus passed. You got it done this time despite losing the House. You have a lot of big accomplishments, and you've listed them many times. Do you think...
You want me to list them again?
Do you think the first 2 years of President Biden's administration have been more productive than the first 2 years of Barack Obama's administration, just in terms of legislation?
Well, look, I put it this way. These 2 years in the Senate and House, in the Congress, was either the most productive in 50 years, great society, or most productive in 100 years since the New Deal. So I think it's been extremely, extremely productive. Yes?
Leader Schumer, you mentioned that you haven't met with Kevin McCarthy yet. You're waiting for him to be elected Speaker. Are you concerned that there could be a MAGA Republican, someone perhaps to his right that's left?
Yeah, but I think what he's going to find there are going to be a whole lot of Republicans to the left of the MAGA, or more to the middle than the MAGA Republicans. And I've talked to some of these folks. Some of them are from New York. And they know that following the MAGA Republicans is Thelma and Louise, over the cliff. So I think you're going to be surprised at how much pull there's going to be on McCarthy once he's elected to move to the middle rather than to the hard right.
Do you think that the folks
And if he's a smart politician, he'll know that's the right place to go.
do you think that the folks in the middle will have some sway potentially in the fight before he gets to be Speaker?
I can't tell you that. I'm not following it that closely. Yes, Hill.
Question about the break in parity on defense and non-defense funding. Republicans, including Ms. McConnell, seem to see this as resetting the table, and I think they're going to demand no parity going forward. Do you see this as a one-time breach that you're going to try to...
Look, we believe in 50-50. We believe we have real needs on the defense side now with Ukraine more than ever, but we believe there are just as many and just as important real needs on the domestic side. Now, we got a whole lot done here. The budget was bigger, so if you look in absolute amounts, the increases in both the amount of money, but more importantly, the substantive changes made on the non-defense side were great and would compare favorably to many other omnibuses, even those that had 50-50 parity. But it's 50-50 parity is something we're going to continue to aspire to. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit more about what about Leader McCarthy's body language was telling you yesterday and that?
Well, that was my observation and hope. Okay? Yes.
You spoke a little bit about your hope that you can continue to work with Republicans in the right government, but you weren't able to get some of these bills through with more moderate Republicans willing to compromise. Was this your last chance?
Oh, no.
To get things like the
Well,
review
if you look at the 7 or 8 biggest bills we did this year, the vast majority were bipartisan. Let's look at the summer. Let's look at this great summer we had. The PACT Act was bipartisan. Guns was bipartisan. CHIPS was bipartisan. Admission to NATO was bipartisan. A little further back, Post Office was bipartisan. BIF was bipartisan. Most of what we did was bipartisan, and I believe that's going to continue. I believe that's where the Republicans want to be, to try and work with us where they can. That doesn't mean we'll always agree with them or get everything we want, but I think you're going to find bipartisanship continuing in the next Congress more than the prognosticators believe. Paul.
Do you worry, though, in the next Congress, some of those votes that you were just citing, it might have been 62 to 63 votes. When you look at across the aisle next time, you're not going to see Rob Portman. You're going to see J.D. Vance. You're not going to see Roy Blunt. It's going to be
I'll miss some of them.
And,
Yeah.
We'll see how Katie Britt is, but she's not really probably going to be Dick Shelby. Do you worry that the conference across the aisle is going to be a different type?
No, I think that is on the one hand, we've lost some of the Republicans. We were very, a Blunt and a Burr. We dealt with in a bipartisan way very successfully. But I think the Republican Party as a whole and the mainstream of the Republican Party has learned and is learning that, the Trump way doesn't work and the MAGA way doesn't work. And that's why we got an omnibus that was as successful as it was. That was the first test. And it did have the people who are still there. But you can be sure, if you looked at the votes, there was a desire on the Republican side, despite the pressure from the MAGAs and what the House Republicans said, to get this done. And I think you're going to see the same pressures continue. I think that is indicative. Last one. Yes.
Other than appropriations, NDAA, Farm Bill, what are the sort of must-pass bills for you over the next 2 years?
I haven't really. I'm going to sit down between Christmas and New Year's, and when we get back, and start thinking seriously about the next 2 years. There'll be a lot to do, but I'm going to withhold judgment until I come back. Okay? Thank you, everybody. A good holiday to one and all. Appreciate it.